On a un groupe d'enseignants qui ont essayé de faire entrer des concepts religieux islamistes dans une école publique au Québec.
Those 11 teachers were part of a dominant group within the school imposing Islamic teaching and views.
Schools in Quebec are under investigation following revelations that a dominant Maghreb group allegedly created a toxic environment and introduced Islamic religious practices within the institution. Today, we discuss this with Eric Duhaime, leader of the Conservative Party of Quebec. Hello everyone, I'm in Quebec's capital to gather Mr. Eric Duhaime's opinion on the ongoing investigation at Bedford School in Montreal. This investigation was launched after a report by journalist Valérie Leboeuf revealed that a dominant group of teachers was imposing a climate of terror within the institution. These Maghreb origin teachers have had their teaching licenses temporarily suspended pending the outcome of the investigation. According to reports, physical and mental abuse were inflicted on students at the school. It is also mentioned that some young girls were denied access to certain sports deemed masculine. Additionally, subjects like science were reportedly removed entirely, while Islamist ideologies and practices were introduced, such as when a teacher, instead of assisting a sick student, simply prayed. The issue of mass immigration must be addressed in this context. Several thousand people have come to Canada with their beliefs and ideologies. The Bedford School example reflects what we have been seeing in our streets since October 7, 2023. Islamist extremism spreading hatred against the West and Jews. People are glorifying and supporting terrorist organizations while authorities are not enforcing laws and regulation to stop this scourge.
Death to Canada! Death to the United States! And death to Israel!
Is it due to fear of being labeled racist or Islamophobic? Let's hear today from Mr. Eric Duhaime on this crucial issue.
On a un groupe d'enseignants qui ont essayé de faire entrer des concepts religieux islamistes dans une école publique au Québec.
This recommendation, the members of the investigation committee tell me that in considering the facts, they're coming to the conclusion that the law on secularism is not being respected at Bedford.
First off, yesterday the Minister of Education in Quebec, Bernard Drinville, announced that 11 teachers were suspended and were denied the right to teach in Quebec, even if they're still getting their income, because of a report that is very troubling, where we learned that those 11 teachers were part of a dominant group within the school imposing Islamic teaching and views. And it's very disturbing to learn that. But at the same time, we have to wonder, is it an isolated case? And now we find out that, look, there's 3 other schools that are under investigation. There's also kindergartens now that are looked at where it could be even worse. And why are we there right now in Quebec? It's not a mistake. It's not a single case isolated. It's the fact that we haven't done anything for years. The authorities and the union knew for 7 years what was going on in that school, and they never acted. The only reason why they're acting now is because it came out publicly, and the media talked about it over the last few days, and that's unacceptable. I personally worked in Morocco in another life for an organization, and I was told, I saw the ministry there. There's a Ministry of Islamic Affairs that was depriving teachers or even imams in mosques to teach certain things, certain radical ideas like those that we see right now in Quebec. And it was done in an Islamic kingdom. And they cannot do it in an Islamic kingdom, but they can do it here in Canada. And many of them actually left Morocco and are now immigrants here in Canada, preaching what they cannot do in their own country. it makes no sense. It shows that, we were very naive and we didn't look at it the proper way. And now, how could we fix that problem? Obviously, we need to look at our immigration policies. How come those people came in Quebec? How come in Quebec 2 weeks ago, there were people in the streets protesting and celebrating the massacre of over 1,000 people in Israel? That's very, very concerning. Though we would have seen that 20 or 30 years ago in Quebec. How come those people who all came from different countries are currently here? How come we accepted people who do not share our values at all? That's something we need to think about. There's also the pro-Palestine rallies, where an imam was calling openly for the killing of Jews.
آمين. اللهم عليك بأعداء أهل غزة. آمين. اللهم احصهم عددا. آمين. اقتلهم بددا. آمين. لا تذر منهم أحدا. آمين.
Without any sanction, he had the freedom of religion to say so because he asked Allah to do it. We also have imams teaching to young kids that then decided to go and do the jihad without any sanction for those who were teaching those kids. There's all sorts of things that are happening in Quebec right now that are out of control. We have to always be cautious, obviously. Muslims are not all the same. The strong majority is moderate and has nothing to do with that. But in the name of those people, actually, and for Quebecers, we need to make sure that we stand up and say that those things are unacceptable and this needs to stop right now. And we need to name it. It's not a religion. It's not certain people. It's not, we have to stop playing with words. There's even Thomas Mulcair, the former NDP leader, yesterday, who said, it's because of the underfunding of the public school versus the private school. It has nothing to do with the debate on private or public schools. It has everything to do with the fact that we cannot say that the problem is the radical Islam. And we need to be able to say it. And that's the first step if we want to find a real solution.
Soyons clairs. Lorsqu'il y avait des commissions scolaires puis des gens élus, c'était des gens qui avaient des enfants dans le secteur public. Ils avaient un intérêt à ce que ça marche bien. Depuis lors, ce sont des fonctionnaires à Québec qui nomment des fonctionnaires dans les villes, y compris à Montréal, même si ces gens-là n'ont aucun intérêt, n'ont jamais mis leurs enfants à l'école publique. Ça, c'est un des gros problèmes au Québec. On a des écoles privées qui achètent des lacs, des terrains à Mont-Tremblant, des chalets de grande valeur avec l'argent des contribuables, tandis que les écoles publiques sont en train de crever de faim. Puis oui, il peut y avoir des très graves problèmes, puis on ne fait rien. Ça, c'est le problème de base, Paul. Mais est-ce qu'on le regarde? Pas du tout. Parce qu'on évoque l'islamisme, toujours le même bouc émissaire.
I want a little bit you to explain how they use our law to protect themselves from their religious discourse.
Well, the example is the imam who was in a pro-Palestine protest a few months ago, got away with it, saying that because of the religious freedom, he was not saying that we should kill people. It was not a hate speech. He said that he was asking Allah to kill people, and it passed the test. I mean, legally, he said they decided that we're not going to sue him because he didn't do it by himself, but he asked Allah to do it. I mean, that's the way that they're using our charters and our laws to make sure that the common sense is not applied right now.
How come we don't see the law enforcement applying the law to those who are, first of all, glorifying and supporting terrorist organizations here in Canada? Every weekend we see some people mourning Yahya Sinwar, that is the leader of Hamas. We saw some people calling for the death of Canada and Israel. How come those people are not being prosecuted?
It's very weird that, there's kind of a double standard right now. We saw a few years ago people in Ottawa protesting peacefully against the regulation, the government that was trying to deprive them from their basic freedoms and even democracy in Canada, and they were protesting in front of Parliament. And those people were called illegal, and there's even people who saw their bank accounts seized. Now we have people protesting, calling for people to die. They're doing all sorts of crazy things like we just mentioned, and there's no sanction. It just doesn't make any sense. And why? Because they're scared of the woke people. They're scared that, it's politically incorrect. We're going to target a certain group. Well, we need to. There is a group that is a problem, and we need to face it.
There is a rise of protests, violent protests, where they break windows, they are doing vandalism, they are doing all kind of things as hate speech, but all those people are fully masked. Do you think it's something that we should review?
Well, that's a big problem. We cannot identify the people who are doing that. It was even worse than that. I've met the people at McGill University when there was a huge protest a few months ago, and they were negotiating with people who were wearing masks. Like, how could you You don't even know if they're students of the university. So when you push the envelope, you see that it cannot work that way in any way, form, or shape.
Mm-hmm. And my last question is about Valérie Plante. She's the mayor of Montreal. She's kind of silently participating of everything that's going on in Montreal as the city council with the Islamic woman on the front page for welcoming people in Montreal.
Well, Valérie Plante is part of the problem, obviously. Today she announced that she's not going to run next year, and I think it's a good news for everyone. And it's not, it's part of the problem is that there is some politicians and media that are silenced. Sometimes they're doing it openly, but usually it's their silence that make them support those causes. And I think that's part of the problem that we need to solve as well. There's political politicians and journalists that are not doing their job properly right now.
And what a Conservative Party would do if for solving this problem?
Well, the first step is to name the problem. I think that's what we need to say. We need to identify what's the problem. The second thing is review our policies. It's important for us to make sure that the immigrants who come to Quebec speak French for all sorts of reasons, but they need also to share common values. I think that's the basis of it all. And thirdly, when there's whistleblowers in schools, kindergartens, or hospitals that are talking about what's going on and that there's religious freaks that are running the show, well, we need to take them seriously, and we need to make sure that the people who are the unions and the government is accountable.
Don't forget to go to rebelfieldreports.com. As you know, it's not free in Canada to do our job. We don't receive a penny from the Liberal government. We want to keep our independence, and we are asking you to go over rebelfieldreports.com and chip in what you can. A simple dollar can count in this situation. Censorship or trying to block us in different ways, it's really difficult to be an independent journalist here in Canada. Thanks in advance for chipping in and supporting our journalism.